I have been discussing the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and I'm sorry there has been a 2 week break. I had to go out of Chennai. So I'll do a small recap before I begin. But I keep thinking about this, and I keep getting new ideas, and I think I made it a little apparent that I have a background in quality, and I always connect up Yoga Sutras to something in quality. And I realized what Patanjali did was, is my mic working? Yeah. So I realized what Patanjali did was to basically do a root cause analysis. That's what I think he did. He found out that there are all these fear, anxiety, stress, anger, jealousy, greed, and he found that people were having these emotions and feelings, and he started thinking about them. And then I like the 5 whys methodology of arriving at the root cause. So he defined the problem first, and he said, okay, these are the things that are happening. And then he kept on narrowing it down through the funnel of the 5 whys. And then he came to the conclusion that I usually open my discussions with that sutra from the Samadhipata, sutra number 2, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the restraint of the modification of the senses. So he did it so beautifully when he came to that conclusion. He analyzed all these human emotions, and he asked himself, why this? Then the next why, next why, next why. And at last he came to this conclusion, and Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha is both the objective and the definition of yoga. Having said this, I won't dwell much. This will keep getting shorter and shorter. My name is Ramakrishnan. I am from Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Namaste, Namaskaram, greetings. Welcome everybody to the 7th episode, I think, of this series on Yoga Sutras. We have discussed the vrittis, the chitta, the mind stuff. So chitta has been we have discussed it in detail. Vrittis also, we listed them out, and we first described the first vritti, which is real cognition, and how that happens. Just for a recap, real cognition mostly happens through the 5 senses, and the what I call the controller perceives these, and the processor processes these, and it refers back to the database and then matches them, and then any action to be taken, the action is taken, the ego gets attached to that action, and then we get the feeling of I am doing this. So this is the whole cycle. And because of this cognition, modifications happen in the mind, and as we have discussed, non-colored and colored modifications. Colored modifications are of 2 kinds, bad and negative and positive. We are going to focus on the negative. So we finished definition of real cognition. If you cast your minds back, I compared it to sometimes, where unreal cognition becomes real cognition, or real cognition turns into unreal. Typically a mirage in the desert, which you think is real cognition, but when you're near it, it becomes unreal cognition. So and it's as simple as that. Various other things that happen. Many things in life will seem like real cognition, but on later analysis, it will turn out to be unreal cognition. For unreal cognition, I had used the example of a rope appearing as a snake. I used the analogy of a belt lying on your colt, but in the darkness, it's mistaken for a snake, and you start beating the belt, and you turn on the switch and realize it was after all a belt. So again, an unreal cognition that turned into a real cognition. These two, in fact, are the two most famous examples used in the Shastras. We can also look at unreal cognitions as mistaking somebody's intentions. They actually intend to do you some good, and but because your perception is wrong, you think their intentions are different. That also forms part of unreal cognition. These two are the main. We also have imagination, flights of fancy, delusions. It's called vikalpa. Uh, uh, Anything, it could be daydreaming about about the future, and looking at imagining that something will happen in the future and worrying about it, thinking about it. Belief in superstition, that's part of imagination. And thinking in terms of stereotypes, you meet one person of a kind, something of a kind, and you conclude that everybody of that type will be the same. So stereotyping is a kind of a delusion, imaginary, and constructing stories based on very limited information, concluding something very hastily, and assuming some spiritual experiences based on symbolism alone, like, oh, I see a cow, and oh, cow is God, so I have seen God. Symbolism, I'm just mentioning it as an example. Okay, so these are all some types of delusions. I'm sure you understand this. These also lead to vrittis. The fourth and fifth vrittis, I will cover them, and maybe we'll look at them later, but I'll describe them so that I don't leave them out. So we have memory. This is a little tricky to understand when Patanjali says what it is, because Patanjali looks at it as there are two things: the knowing of the object and the object itself. So it can be both. When the act of knowledge of knowing the habit, when it is done, then it becomes, if that is first, then it can be both. So it depends on what it is that comes first. So either the vritti is created by the knowledge of knowing, in which case it directly affects the mind stuff. But if it is the object itself, it goes in through the senses, the perceptory organs. Honestly, I myself am not very clear about it, but basically memory also is a vritti. Sleep is also a vritti, because again Patanjali says, okay, you're not aware of anything when you're asleep, but as soon as you wake up, you wake up and say, I slept well, I had this nice dream. Or you say, I didn't sleep well, oh, I had nightmares, I'm depressed today. It happens to me. I wake up sometimes quite feeling well, and then something I have dreamt, and I recollect when I wake up, and that becomes the day is pretty tough for me. So sleep is also vritti. But the first three, that is real cognition, unreal cognition, and delusion, imaginations. These are the main things that we'll focus on. Memory, we'll look at it, and sleep also we'll consider it a little. I think with this we conclude our discussions on vrittis also. And now again, to put it all together, we have the mind stuff, there are vrittis or modifications. These are colored or non-colored. We are looking at colored, and in the colored we are looking at the negative and positive, and we are going to focus on the negative vrittis and modifications. Maybe after 2 or 3 episodes we'll come to the practices that will help us in controlling these modifications. What I would like to do today is I would like to end with a statement and a question. Now, the statement I'm making this statement, maybe putting the cart before the horse, but this has to be said because with this we will be concluding the first main verses of the Samadhi Pada that are relevant to the conversations that we have been having. So this is 1.11 or 1.12, I think, where Patanjali clearly states that the methods, the sine qua non for starting the practices for restraining the modifications is, one is abhyasa, that is practice, other is vairagya, which is non-attachment. He clearly stresses this in 1.11 itself in the Samadhi Pada. With this, he more or less concludes the topic of the vrittis and restraints. The rest of the sutras in the Samadhi Pada are more concerned towards liberation and moksha, so we won't be addressing them in these discussions. I would like to leave you with a question. This is also something that I have realized. I want you to think about these modifications and the negative effects of these modifications. That is the negatively colored modifications. I'm sure we all know, but nobody needs to teach us. It's not rocket science which vrittis are, which modifications are negative. We know, okay, jealousy, greed, anger, so many things. These are all negative modifications. But I realized that there is something very, very specific in an Indian art form that clearly recognizes these modifications. But this art form recognizes both the negative and positive ones. If I give a hint, I think many of you who know dance will, the answer will immediately spring to your mind. So that's a very big clue that I'm giving you. And also, the other negative modifications have been used in the Abrahamic philosophy. That's also a great big hint I'm leaving you. Please think about these two, and I would love to have your thoughts and comments. Please leave them in this video. Really, I would appreciate that if some of you take the trouble to comment on these and give your own thoughts on what these are. It really struck me only a few days back. So with that, I think I'll end today's discussion. At last, I'm trying to stay within my time limit. It is about 14 minutes. And so please do, if you liked this video, please like it, share it, subscribe to my channel, press the bell icon so that you get notified about the next episode to come up. It's going to be every Sunday at 6:30 in the evening, and the link to the playlist containing the previous episodes will be available in the description. If you have not watched them, I ask you to, if this talk has, this is the first time you're watching this and it has piqued your interest, please go and watch the previous episodes. Unless you know them, you will not be able to follow what is coming ahead. So, namaskaram, namaste, greetings.